You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. Well guys, it's been almost 5 years since the release of Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and now we have a brand new, fully updated version of Skyrim to play. The good or bad news is that just like Borderlands and Fallout 4, Skyrim has some really awful weapons. Now, to Bethesda's credit, they did hide most of these weapons pretty well, or they gave them some utility so they wouldn't be 100% awful. In fact, I first played Skyrim for the first time in late 2013, and I didn't even realize that some of these weapons even existed. I'm mostly basing my reasoning on why these weapons are bad on a combination of factors, including whether they can be improved at a grindstone, their base damage, or whether they even scale with specific weapon perks and or perk trees that they would be associated with. In case you're curious, all the weapons on this list can be enchanted. So without further ado, these are the top 9 worst swords, bows, and other weapons in Elder Scrolls Skyrim Remastered, starting now. Number 9. Iron weapons in general. I may have triggered somebody here, but all iron weapons, including the iron dagger, iron sword, iron greatsword, iron war axe, iron battle axe, iron mace, and the iron warhammer suck. The only iron weapon that doesn't totally suck is the iron arrow, which isn't particularly great either, but its appeal is that it's common and cheap to purchase and or craft. Now, I suppose someone could argue that iron weapons are meant to be beginner weapons, and they aren't supposed to be great. In that case, I guess the idea is that you start off with iron, and then maybe you progress on to steel, and then maybe you progress on to either elven if you want light armor, or maybe dwarven if you decided that you wanted heavy armor. The problem, though, is that all characters have the steel smithing perk. And also keep in mind that steel weapons appear as soon as level 2. So literally once you get to Riverwood, you should be able to acquire and even buy steel weapons. If not there, you will see steel weapons in the next city that you decide to travel to. Also, unlike steel weapons, it's worth mentioning that iron weapons don't benefit from any perk upgrades, so they can't be improved past flawless quality unless you have enchanted armor and smithing potions. Even the various hold guards throughout Skyrim think iron weapons suck, and will sometimes say things like, "Iron sword, eh? What are you fighting? Butterflies?" Guys, just save your resources and either buy steel weapons or something better. Number 8. The longbow. By itself, the longbow is the worst bow in Skyrim. It possesses the lowest damage potential out of all of the bows in the game at a base damage of 6. Now, I guess to be fair, it's really the first bow you can acquire in Skyrim, so maybe I shouldn't be quite so hard on it. After all, at least you can perform some smithing in order to improve the longbow's damage, which is something that can't be said of many of the other weapons on this list. So what I will do instead is discuss some of the worst arrows available to the player in Skyrim. Now, while iron arrows suck, the advantage they have is that they're cheap and relatively common. However, both FALMER and FORSWORN arrows are somehow worse than iron arrows damage-wise, and both are also considerably more uncommon than the iron arrows. This means you would literally have to go out of your way to acquire both FALMER and FORSWORN arrows just so you could deal less damage. What a boatload of bias! Without a doubt, the worst arrow in the game is the practice arrow. Not only can you receive only 10 at a time from Angie, located at Angie's camp, but these have a base damage of 0. They are literally the perfect embodiment of doing jack shit. The only reason you would use these is if you wanted to keep a target alive. And isn't the point of an arrow to kill whatever you shoot it at? In summary, use a different bow and use an arrow with a damage of 8 or higher. Number 7. The pickaxe and woodcutter's axe. So this is a 2-for-1 deal. Both of these weapons are fairly similar, and in fact they both have a base damage of 5, a weight of 10, and a base value of 5 gold. The difference is that the pickaxe can be improved at a grindstone, while the woodcutter's axe cannot. I suppose I should also mention that both of these weapons are considered to be utility tools, and the pickaxe can be used to acquire various ores from mines, which can then be smelted into ingots, and the woodcutter's axe can be used to cut firewood at wood chopping blocks to provide the player with the firewood resource. I guess if I was stranded on a desert island in the world of Skyrim, I'd bring the pickaxe. This is because you can improve pickaxes at a grindstone. That said, there's also the Poacher's Axe, which is a unique woodcutter's axe that has the Huntsman's Prowess enchantment, which allows you to deal a little bit more damage to animals. Interestingly, the Poacher's Axe can be upgraded at a grindstone, provided the player does have the Arcane Blacksmith perk. At the same time, by the time you have Arcane Blacksmith, the steel ingot may be better used elsewhere. Pickaxes are fairly common and can be found in mines throughout Skyrim. The Poacher's Axe is found at the Halted Stream camp, though you will have to defeat the bandits at that location, and make sure to pick up the axe off of a corpse. Otherwise, you can just buy a regular woodcutter's axe almost anywhere. Number 6, the Headsman's Axe. The Headsman's Axe actually has fairly decent damage at 17, which makes it superior to the Iron Battle Axe, which clocks in at about 16 damage per swing. Oddly, the Headsman's Axe is also much lighter than many of the other two-handed battle axes the player can find throughout Skyrim. To give you some idea, the Headsman's Axe weighs 11, while most other battle axes weigh in excess of 20. So it actually sounds pretty great so far, so you may be wondering why this is on the list. Well, the problem is that, like many of the other weapons on this list, the Headsman's Axe can't be upgraded at a grindstone. The only way to improve your damage is if you've heavily invested into the two-handed perk tree, and this is a shame as the Headsman's Axe is so much lighter than many of the other two-handed axes that appear in Skyrim. While you can enchant this weapon, why would you waste the time enchanting this when you could simply enchant an Iron Battle Axe and improve it at a grindstone and ultimately make it better than the stock Headsman's Axe? I guess if you want a Headsman's Axe, the best way to get one is to find Altair in Solitude. Depending on the time of day, he can be found roaming the streets, or you can find him in the castle dungeon. You can either kill him, or you can game him as a follower. The latter is probably the best option, as you won't be incurring any bounties. Number 5, the Dragon Priest Dagger. The Dragon Priest Dagger is a dagger that has a base damage of 6 and a weight of 5. This weapon is one of the weaker daggers available to the player in Skyrim, and you may recognize this weapon as there is a unique variant of the Dragon Priest Dagger called the Kavozane's Fang. I hope I pronounced that right. What this Fang Dagger does is it allows you to acquire heart scales from dragons as a part of the Alteration Ritual spell side quest that you do for Tolfdir at the College of Winterhold. As a weapon, the Dragon Priest Dagger is boosted by the One-Handed Tree's Armsman perk, but you can't craft the Dragon Priest Dagger, nor can you improve its damage at a grindstone. You can enchant these, but for such a low base damage, you would be wasting your enchantment. My biggest issue with the Dragon Priest Dagger is the weight. For the same weight, you could craft an Ebony Dagger, which would also upgrade at a grindstone and enchant. Not to mention that the Ebony Dagger's base damage is 10, and you could feasibly get that as high as 20 with smithing. My question is, why would you even use the Dragon Priest Dagger when the Ebony Dagger is an option? Now, ultimately, the Dragon Priest Dagger is fairly rare. You can find one in Ysgrimor's tomb, but I would recommend that you get Kavozane's Fang that Tolfdir gives you, as that is definitely going to be a little more practical. Number 4, the Shiv. So the Shiv is Skyrim's weakest dagger and is somehow actually worse than the Iron Dagger, which I must say is a pretty big accomplishment. This is despite the fact that the Iron Dagger has lower base damage than the Shiv before any upgrades from smithing. Now, stat-wise, to give you some idea, the Shiv has a base damage of 5 and a weight of 2, compared to the Iron Dagger's base damage of 4 and weight of 2. While certain perks like Assassin's Blade are compatible with the Shiv, the same perks are compatible with all of the other daggers in the game, including the Iron Dagger. Not to mention that the vast majority of those daggers can be both upgraded by smithing and enchantments, where the Shiv can only be buffed through enchantments. The Shiv has to be one of the worst weapons in Skyrim. While there are other weapons with lower damage and even some that don't benefit from a weapon perk tree at all, the Shiv is pretty bad. If you want one of these though, your best bet for acquiring one is in Sidna Mine. You'll go to this mine during the No One Escapes Sidna Mine side quest mission, depending on what your actions are in Markarth. Number 3, the Wooden Sword. The wooden sword is a one-handed melee weapon with a base damage of 2 and a weight of 3. It can't be crafted, but it can be upgraded with a piece of firewood. Like many of the other weapons on this list, the wooden sword can't be upgraded to legendary quality and doesn't benefit from any smithing perks. The only way to achieve legendary versions is if you're using enchanted armor with smithing potions. I feel like a broken record here, guys, but the wooden sword can also be enchanted, like the SHIV and the Dragon Priest dagger. Obviously, your base damage here is pretty terrible. This is somehow even lower than the base damage that we saw on both the SHIV and the Dragon Priest dagger. Even after improving the wooden sword with smithing, you're still going to have lower damage than both the SHIV and the Dragon Priest dagger. It should be fairly obvious, but the wooden sword isn't meant to be used in combat. It's almost as bad as Dark Souls' sword hilt in the sense that it barely deals any damage. But if you want one, the wooden sword can occasionally be purchased from general goods merchants throughout Skyrim. Number 2, the knife. Despite the fact that I've somehow managed to log about 200 to 300 hours in Skyrim, I never even knew that the knife could actually be used as a weapon. The knife is pretty much your standard kitchen knife, and unlike many of the other knives that you can find throughout the game, you can equip this knife like you can equip a dagger. I'm not sure if the knife benefits from certain perks that are specific to daggers, but the knife does gain enhanced damage provided you specialize in one-handed weapons. You'll ultimately find, though, that the gains you will receive here are terrible, as the base damage of 2 means you're only going to scale up to about 4 damage, with double improvement. Unlike the wooden sword, the knife can't be improved at a grindstone. To make things worse, the knife is very rare to actually find throughout Skyrim and is best acquired at the Honeyside player home in Riften once you've purchased the porch upgrade. I suppose this is just another one of the joke weapons that Bethesda decided to put into Skyrim. At least this benefits from specific weapon perks, unlike the next weapon I'm about to cover. Number 1, the fork. I must admit that just like the knife, I didn't even realize the fork could be used as a weapon. It's worth mentioning that this is a special fork that can be used as a one-handed melee weapon with a base damage of 1 and a weight of 0.5. As I alluded to with the knife, most kitchen knives and forks can't be used as weapons and are mostly junk, and it's important to reiterate that this fork is different from the 4-pronged forks that you may find throughout Skyrim. To make things worse, the fork can't be upgraded at the grindstone to improve its effectiveness, nor can the fork benefit from any of the weapon tree perks, despite the fact that the fork functions as a one-handed melee weapon. The only way to make the fork stronger is to enchant it at an arcane enchanter. The problem with that is that you could save your enchantment for a much better weapon. The fork has the lowest base damage of any weapon in Skyrim. That said, there are a few other weapons lurking in the game's code, like the Illusory War Axe and the Phantom Sword. However, both of these weapons can't be obtained without the use of console commands, where the fork can be obtained both with and without console commands. The best place to get the fork is located at the Honeyside player home in Riften. If you purchase the porch upgrade, you can get a fork to use as a weapon along with the kitchen knife. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. So this is the first Skyrim Remastered video I've done. If you guys like this video, I think I will do more, or I may do more anyway. We'll just have to see. But again guys, like this video if you liked it, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.